In our leading story, Eskom has taken on the costly independent power producers policy. Speaking to ANN7, Eskom has said that the electricity from the independent power producers is up to 7 times more costly than that of coal-generated electricity and that it may destabilize Eskom's revenues. Yesterday, hundreds of truckers contracted by Eskom protested in Pretoria against government's announcement to employ more independent power producers. They say IPPs will leave hundreds of them jobless. Here's a look at some negatives associated with the independent power producers. First up is the issue that it's up to 7 times more costly than coal-generated electricity. Secondly, IPPs are likely to force at least 4 coal-powered plants out of operation in the next 10 years. Thirdly, Eskom's cost of procurement is likely to rise, increasing its losses while it subsidizes costly IPP power. Raising IPP component in the energy mix will also necessitate the introduction of nuclear energy to offset the losses. Moreover, the IPPs are mostly owned by foreign owners and they do not meet the BEE criteria, which is central to transformation. And there's a big possibility that IPPs will slowly stifle small black coal producers who had started building businesses with supplies to Eskom. Well, joining us for more on this is Eskom spokesperson Khulu Phasiwe. A very good day to you, Mr. Phasiwe. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, witnessing the truckers protesting in Pretoria yesterday, can this be seen as a coal and IPP at loggerheads?
Well, yes, indeed. Today we saw the sort of clash, I would say, of technologies. We have the traditional and the established technologies in terms of coal and the new technologies in the form of renewables, where the old, which is the coal, is saying we need to make sure that we reduce the level of, or at least the pace in which we are introducing the renewables into the system. But we as Eskom are saying we need to have a nice balance between what we are able to get into the system in a form of coal and also renewables, and also at some point we're going to add nuclear and gas and other sources of energy. So we feel we need to find a nice balance between all sorts of energy sources. We don't want to have a situation similar to in some countries where you only have coal or you only have renewables. We want to have a nice mix, which is what government is actually pursuing at this stage.
Now, are you going to discontinue transportation contract with some of the truck companies?
Well, we have already written letters to them, essentially just notifying them that their contracts are coming to the end in May of 2018, and therefore we just are cushioning ourselves so that when the time comes, we don't have any surprises there. But the main reason really is that the main reason why there was a protest today was because some of the companies already are beginning to feel the pinch. On average, Eskom uses about 120 million tons of coal, but so far we have reduced that amount by 3 million tons, meaning that we are only using about 127 million tons. So the guys who are used to transporting so many tons of coal per day or per month are now transporting much less, which is why today they were protesting, saying that a decision by government for Eskom to sign more renewables is actually beginning to eat into their business, and therefore before long they feel that many of them will go out of business. You have to remember again that the argument they are making is also very strong, in a sense that some of them are saying they have been saving money for many years. Others have taken their pension payouts and monies that they have gotten from the banks and things to buy these trucks. And now only to hear that they are no longer required to supply as much coal as before, it's also beginning to sort of bring a jittery on them, which is why today they were bringing their grievances to the seat of power, which is the nation union buildings.
Well, Mr. Phasiwe, do you see this as perhaps the tip of the iceberg, and in the future are we going to see more such protests?
Well, we're hopeful that there'll be some coming together of ideas from all stakeholders so that we can avoid a situation where South Africa is paralyzed by such strike actions or protests that we saw today. So indeed, it is unfortunate that if we are going to close some of our mines, then it means that some of the, if we are going to close some of our power stations, it means that some of the mines will be affected, and also the people who are transporting coal into the power stations will also be affected. And our own people who are working at those power stations to generate electricity will also be affected. On average, some estimations are saying that closing just one power station could affect up to 30,000 jobs, including people who are working for the mines, people who are working as coal transporters, and also people who are working for Eskom in those power stations. So I don't think we as a country want to get there, which is why it's very important for us to, as soon as possible, sit together so that we can find a lasting solution.
So in a new energy mix, is there any likelihood of perhaps coal-based power generation going down?
Well, in terms of government's plan, between now and 2050, we want to gradually reduce our reliance on coal. For many years, South Africa has been dependent on coal for energy generation, but now the move is actually towards what we call an energy mix. We want to have nuclear, we want to have coal, we want to have renewables, we want to have gas, and other sources of energy also included in there. So we don't want a situation where we're only depending on one source of power generation. We want to have a diversity of these sources, which is going to help South Africa in the long run, because if you have a problem in one of or maybe a number of mines about a particular issue, you can always continue to generate electricity or ensure security of supply by using other sources of energy. So we have decided as a country that this is the way to go, and this is what we are doing now.
In your opinion, which energy generation module is actually more cost effective? Is it generation via coal or via the IPP?
Well, at this stage, we as Eskom at our coal-fired power stations, we are using on average about 32 cents per kilowatt hour to produce electricity. We are buying, though, electricity from the independent power producers, especially the renewables, at 2 rand 18 cents per kilowatt hour. So clearly, if you compare 2 rand 18 and 39 cents, there's a vast difference between the two. But the most important thing to remember is that at the time when the renewables were negotiated between South Africa and those independent producers, South Africa was having load shedding. We were in deep trouble because of the situation that was happening at Eskom at the time. We were not also in a position to, I would say, assure the nation that we will be in a position to give them electricity. So South Africa was negotiating possibly at a back foot, really, with the independent power producers, which is why we started at very high levels, at 3 rands per kilowatt hour, but the prices are gradually going down. Currently, we are sitting at 2 rand 18 cents, but there are moves within the sector to actually reduce the price to levels of up to 60 cents per kilowatt hour. But currently, we are buying from these renewable energy projects at 2 rand 18 cents per kilowatt hour.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, the IPP would be more costly. Does that mean that the new energy mix would also be costly?
Well, at the current rate, yes. The IPPs are much steeper or more expensive in terms of comparisons between them and coal. But the indications we are getting from the industry is that the prices are likely to go even further down, up to 60 cents per kilowatt hour. So we will see as to how this goes over the next few years.
Now, Mr. Pasiwe, let's talk about job creation. How would you compare that when it comes to coal versus the IPP?
Well, as far as coal and renewables are concerned in relation to job creation, there's almost no comparisons, to be honest with you. A renewable energy project, generally, once it's completed, you would have only a few people who will go there once in a while to check if the blades or the turbines are still turning or do other maintenance-related issues there. Unlike a power station where you would have a lot of people who are working at a mine to produce coal, you also have coal transporters or trucks who are going in and out, and you also have people who are working at a power station to make sure that they keep the system running every day. So the comparisons are actually even negligent. It's not something worth comparing at this stage.
Well, how many IPPs are you engaging with currently, and what is the target for the future?
Well, we have currently signed 64 projects, which is the renewable energy projects. We are in the process of signing another 39 projects. So the ones that we have already signed, the 64, are producing in total about 4,200 megawatts into the grid. The remaining 39 are going to produce about 620 megawatts into the grid. So this is a process that we will be engaging in for the next few years. And the new rounds of renewables that government is currently negotiating with, the majority of them are going to be coal and gas fired. So once those ones are ready, we will also send them on. But the most important thing to remember at this stage is that we as a nation have decided that we want to have an energy mix which consists of all the energy sources that we have available.
And how will the IPPs impact or reflect on Eskom's balance sheet?
Well, currently we are sitting at about 18 billion rand that we have already spent between 2012 and the end of January this year. So the reason being that generally at this stage at least, the renewables are still fairly expensive, which is why they are having this impact on our I would say balance sheet. But it also has to be added that the amounts of money that we are spending on buying electricity from the IPPs is actually money that is recoverable, because the laws of this country through the energy regulator are saying that this is a recoverable money. Essentially means that once we spend money on these projects, we can reclaim that money through the RCA process, which is a process which NERSA is currently handling. However, it has to be added that currently the RCA process is sort of in stagnation, because there's a court challenge around this matter, which is why Eskom, for the current financial year at least, we are unable to claim the money for the past financial year, because that matter is still within the courts.
Well, lastly, can we say that the IPPs are expensive and lead to possible job losses and would incur more loss to Eskom? I mean, will it be a liability, as Eskom would actually be paying more in subsidies to the consumers?
Well, I think the loss or the liability that we are likely to face is not necessarily in relation to the prices per se. It's in relation to the fact that we currently have a situation where we are unable to recover our monies that we have spent on the IPPs, because there's a challenge which is currently in the courts, because there's a certain company which is based in Port Elizabeth which has challenged the way that NERSA is handling its processes in terms of determining its prices to Eskom. So I would say the challenge for us is really in terms of the assurance that we need in terms of recovering the monies that we would have spent on the IPPs.